This is Dan Dicks here reporting for Press for Truth, and we got a great show lined up for you today, my friends. So let's just jump right into it. Joining me on the line right now is Allison Royals. This is someone who used to work for the mainstream media outlets and has recently left the MSM to go independent, something I love to see, something I think we need to see more of. So Allison, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us here on Press for Truth. Now I want to hear about your new school news and what your hopes and aspirations are for that. But before we get into that, maybe you could start us off with a bit of the backstory of some of the places you used to work and why you left, how you got to the point of leaving a career with the mainstream media and to going fully independent.
Whew, how much time you have, Dan? I'll give you a quick synopsis. So I'm originally from LA, and then I went to college over in San Luis Obispo, which is halfway between LA and San Francisco in California. Studied broadcast journalism there. I loved it. I knew that it was what I wanted to do from the time I was about 17 years old. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to do enterprise reporting. I loved the idea of putting videos together, not necessarily like being on TV, if you know what I mean, but I loved that style of storytelling. And so then my first big kid job, so to speak, was over in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where I worked for the NBC affiliate that covers Minnesota, Iowa, and South Dakota, which was a rude awakening for someone who had never even really seen real snow before. So that was a really good experience. And then eventually my dream job is I always wanted to work in San Diego because I love that my family's from LA, but like LA is LA. You know, it can wear you down. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So I wanted to be with the weather, where the weather was great. I wanted to be near my family. So I thought, okay, San Diego is a good compromise. I'm only about 2.5 hours from a lot of my loved ones and friends. I worked my ass off to get that dream job that I really wanted, full-time reporter in San Diego. And of course, I think a lot of my innocence went away with COVID, as did a lot of people's. In retrospect, I think a lot of the injustices that have been going on since the 60s. A lot of the shadiness that we see, a lot of the, Operation Mockingbird or Project Mockingbird that we see. But I don't think it was until COVID that I really realized it. Because when I was a reporter in South Dakota, I was so happy-go-lucky and I saw the world with rose-colored glasses. And for the first part of COVID, I will be honest, I think I saw the world that way too. The first couple months I was, watching Tiger King like everybody. And then you start to see these little things that don't make sense. You start to ask questions and you find yourself in this really scary place of being on the other side. And then you just realize, oh, like this is all set up. Like none of this is exactly what you think it is. And it's a very sobering moment when you realize it. Just so many ethical concerns I've had about how we were reporting COVID, the accuracy of the information. And one of the first things they tell you in journalism school is you tell people about something, but you don't tell people to do something. I remember one of my professors distinctly telling us, if you decide to become a meteorologist and do the forecast on the news every night or every morning, what have you, you cannot tell people if it's raining outside, hey, bring an umbrella, it's gonna rain tomorrow, because you're telling somebody what to do if you say bring an umbrella. You can say, oh, you might wanna throw an umbrella in your bag, but you cannot explicitly give somebody a command. You'll get phone calls from the station. People will be frustrated with you. That stuck with me. We have completely turned this narrative into get vaccinated. They would force me to do vaccination stories, out of retaliation for sure. But I would put in my scripts, if you get vaccinated, I want to give people agency choice. They would change it to when you get vaccinated. My station took a paid partnership, or the company that runs the station that I used to work for took a partnership with the state of California's Let's Get Vaccinated campaign with the Department of Public Health. We will hashtag our, real reporters on their work accounts that are affiliated with the station, have it in their name, would hashtag their stories, get vaccinated, let's get vaccinated. That people would do it on air or on their Instagram accounts. And it became very clear to me that I was seeing things, I want to say differently than other people, but also not, because in private people would confide that they agreed with me. Nonetheless, I kept my mouth shut. You would not have known that I had any of these concerns in a lot of ways. I brought up my concerns to management about how we were reporting these things, but I never brought up the fact that I wasn't vaccinated. I followed the guidelines. I wore my mask. Do I think they work? No. But did I tell anybody that? No. I was a good soldier to the best of my ability, but I was telling people, including my loved ones, they're going to mandate this vaccine. And this was prior to a vaccine even coming out. So I totally sounded like a conspiracy theorist, but I don't care because I was right. And there's no better high than being right for this stuff. So I told people like, hey, like this is going to be mandated. I can feel it in my gut. And they're like, oh, a vaccine isn't even out yet. Like you're jumping the gun. Sure enough, less than a year later, my station went from, hey, if you get the vaccine, management is not allowed to ask you about it. That violates rules, OSHA rules, something. We're not allowed to ask you. So don't bring up your vaccination status. Then it went to everyone needs to fill out a form saying whether or not they're vaccinated. Then it went to in September, you have to be vaccinated by November. Granted, they said that over 90% of the newsroom was already vaccinated. All the on-air people were already vaccinated. I was the only one. No one knew that. I left pretty quietly. My last day was a surprise to a lot of people, even though it was planned. And it was a really hard decision because in some ways it wasn't, but I had a lot of ethical dilemmas for so many months, pretty much all of 2021, 2020, not as much, but 2021, I was getting stomach aches all the time. I had acne like I hadn't had since I was 16 years old because I was constantly trying to get myself out of these situations where I was having to report on things that I didn't believe to be true, didn't believe to be ethical. And then when management over the end of the summer found out I wasn't vaccinated, it was a huge turning point of retaliation. They would pull me off of my assignments to go cover stories about why hospitals are filling up with young people and how they're getting younger, sicker quicker, which of course I looked into, and it's not true, because if it were true, you and I would know a ton of people who are in the hospital and we just don't.
Yeah. Wow. So
it goes on and on.
they started, so you started seeing this when they were tweaking your own reports and making you say things that you didn't necessarily want to say, pushing people towards the vaccines, and then it eventually came down upon you where they wanted to push the vaccine on you. And I guess, is that the moment where you just, decided to say, this is going way beyond what I'm comfortable with, and the vaccine was where you drew the line?
Sorry, my microphone came unplugged.
Oh, no worries. I can still hear you good.
Good.
I wouldn't say there's not like one day where everything changes. It is death by 1,000 little stones.
Mm-hmm.
I would say from early 2021, like January 2021, I started having these ethical dilemmas, but I thought, you know what? I can focus on what I can do. I can't focus on what other people do. If there's a 30-minute newscast, I'm only focused on my story. I don't really care what other people's stories are, respectfully. So it doesn't really matter. But then you do think, okay, like just by working for an organization, I am giving certain ideas oxygen that maybe aren't true, and the guilt goes. And then you think, oh man, I'd love to do my own thing. But there's a mourning process, because this is your dream job for years. This was my dream job for years. The way that I explain it to people, because people are always like, why didn't you just leave right away? And I'm like, it's kind of hard when you feel like this pressure people have invested in you. It's kind of like if you're a college athlete or a professional athlete and you want to quit. You think about all the years that your parents spent driving you to practice every morning and every night, and you feel like you're letting them down. I felt like I was letting down a lot, because a lot of people have believed in me. Like, yes, I work hard, but I've had people who have, pulled me out of line to say that they believe in me, or be like, you know what, like, I'm going to give you a shot. I got this job in San Diego because the managers who I directly work underneath, I think, are wonderful people, and they gave me a shot. I don't hate my whole station. That's definitely not true whatsoever. But of course, everyone, like you said, does have to have a line. I think a lot of people haven't decided their line, but I decided, okay, like my line is no one is making medical decisions for me. Like that is my choice. It is not my station's choice. And so even though there were several events leading up to it that were hellish and really unethical, I said, okay, like that's my line. And if I have to be vaccinated by November 12th, then November 12th is my last day, because I'm not doing that unless it's 100% my decision. So that's exactly what it was. And I think people were really surprised, because I was really quiet after I left, but then in January, I started my own thing. And I had a lot of people reach out to me thinking, oh my gosh, I watched you on the news every morning, every day, and doing live shots in front of vaccine sites. And I had no idea that you were the unvaccinated girl. Yeah. Lots of irony in it. But I was really careful wording my scripts, making sure I didn't tell people what to do. Yeah. But of course, anybody can tweak your anchor intro. You don't have any kind of agency over that. But then I'm like, okay, it doesn't really matter. It's someone else saying it. But I don't know. Then it's still kind of a part of your story.
Well, I'm so glad you didn't cave like so many people do. You know, everybody who I know who has taken the vaccine has not done it for health reasons. They've been coerced into it. They've done it because of work, because of travel, because of various reasons, not because of health, but because they've been forced to do it essentially. But then there's the brave people who draw that line and take that stance and say, nope, this is where I draw the line. So that puts you onto the other side now, where you kind of go from the mainstream being on television to kind of morphing into this online persona. So what's that been like for you, transitioning from going from mainstream and into the field of it being an independent? And tell us a little bit about your new school news that you launched.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been interesting because, like I said, it was when I first started coming home thinking like, oh my, like sick to my stomach about some of the ethical decisions that I was faced with. And this like conflict of like, oh no, but this is my dream job. And like, I do love it. Like, I know I'm going to sound lame, but I did love it. Um, I was talking to some people that I love and they said, well, I'm like, man, like I hate news, but I love journalism. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's how I feel. And they said, well, why don't you do your own thing? And I'm like, it's not like I run a shoe shop. Like I can't just, and they're like, okay, well, someone really wise told me if you can't find a tree, you need to grow one or something along those lines. I'm totally murdering that quote, but I was like, okay, like I got to figure out how to grow this damn tree then. So I kind of spent like a month and a half on the drawing board, like right after Christmas or no, like maybe like a month on the drawing board trying to figure out, okay, like what is new school news going to look like? And I had all these things I wanted because I wanted that professional news value that I'm used to. I mean, I shoot, write, and edit all my own stuff. That's a big thing people don't know about news is a really big cost saving measures. They're having us do everything ourselves, which I actually really enjoyed. But I realized if I waited until I had the kind of capital to buy everything I wanted and had the news value and professionalism I wanted, I was never going to get off the ground. So I was like, all right. So I went to Best Buy. I bought this shitty microphone. Don't get it. I'm sorry. Am I allowed to curse?
Right?
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's
You're
the
going to
beauty
have
of being
to keep every
independent.
other
We
word
can
that I
do
say.
whatever we want to do.
But I bought this microphone and I just started, doing stories that I want to do. And I started a Rumble channel because I knew YouTube would take things down. I'm not saying that they would have at this point, but I know it's a matter of if rather of when, and I can see through a crystal ball, kind of like how I saw vaccine mandates were going to happen. Like YouTube is starting to take down a lot of my friends' videos. So, or, colleague, I don't know if I really have colleagues because I'm kind of a lone wolf at this point, but a lot of people I know's videos. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to something about Rumble. But I decided that Rumble's what I was going to do. And so I started New School News because I figured that the old school model of news didn't work for me, so I should go with New School. I wanted to be misinformation, but that one was already taken. I thought that would be such a cool name though, but somebody already has a podcast by that name. And the whole premise of it is I'm trying to find, and I think I'm doing a decent job so far, but I'm trying to create a news model where we don't take money from pharmaceutical companies, political groups of any affiliation, or big corporations. So I have no idea who that is, but from any of those organizations.
Well, that's
because right now news is completely funded by Big Pharma.
You have to be beholden to the viewer directly. And I think that's a great way to go moving forward is when you're not reliant on an income coming, as you said, from Big Pharma or Alphabet Inc., Google, but rather from the individual viewers who, it's like a mutual voluntary exchange. It's like a contract between the two of us, and I think that's where it should be in the field of independent media. So that's going to be your focus moving forward is kind of crowd funding this thing, or what other ideas do you have?
No, I'm glad you brought that up. So because like we talked about, every corporate news company is completely funded by Big Pharma. That's not a conspiracy. You can find that out in 2 Google searches. I mean, look at who their top stakeholders and shareholders are. It's very simple to connect the dots and it's all public information. So rather than taking money from advertisers right now, it is crowdfunding. I have a Give Send Go. It's givesendgo.com/Allison Royal. And I understand not everyone's in a position to donate, but if they do, I do sincerely appreciate it. But I also understand because right now, I don't know if I would be in a position to donate to an organization or a cause or an independent journalist that I really care about. And then my goal for the next 6 weeks or so, maybe end of May, is I do want to start finding sponsors, but ones that are very mom and pop, and ones that will let me come see it. So if you own some kind of business, you have to be willing to meet me in person and let me come see, okay, like this is how you make things. This is where you get your inventory from. I'm not going to be selling some skinny detox tea from Instagram, because we all know those people who will take money from anyone. The influencers who will, like, you know, market cat food and they don't even have a cat. I'm not going to be that person. I really want to heavily look into where we're getting things from and the ties that organizations have. But of course, those mom and pop sponsors probably won't have a lot of money. So it is going to be largely crowdfunding based, but I don't want to charge for my content. There's going to be no subscription or anything if I can help it.
Yeah, that's the way to go. Just put the content out there. It's that whole cliche: if you build it, they will come. You know, just put it out there, and they will start to come. So I love that you just kind of dove in head first. You know, not really knowing if, you know, all the things you were going to need or if you're going to be able to pull it off, but you just said, I guess, just start doing it, right? So that's fantastic. And if there's anybody else out there who is maybe on the fence or wondering if this is something they could pull off, maybe there's some people in the mainstream who are watching this. Are there any words of advice for anybody who might be watching this who is on the fence and not sure if they're capable of doing something that you've just done? Any words of advice for anybody who might be thinking about doing it?
Well, I don't know if I'm qualified to be giving advice at this point since I am so new, but one of the big things that I would say is that you have to not care what people think about you, which is so cliche, but you have to lean into whatever it is you are passionate about. If I cared about any little opinion that people had of me, like there's no way that I would get started. And that was something I had, is like, oh, I don't want people to think I'm right wing. I don't want people to think I'm left wing. Like, just do good, honest content. And like you said, if you build it, they will come. You cannot be worried about being labeled like something. I think I kept so quiet so long about the fact that I wasn't vaccinated and really only shared it with one or two coworkers out of my, at the time, pretty large station, is because, well, A, I thought it's not really anyone's business, my medical decisions, but B, you worry about people seeing you differently, whether if they see you in a better or worse light. You can't let that define you. And so you can't care what people think, but also, like, the fact that I'm not vaccinated is the least interesting thing about me. So I would hate for people to, like, come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, I watch your stories, like, you're the unvaccinated girl. Like, that's not who I am. Like I want to be known for my stories and, like, the work that I put into them, and how much work goes in on that boots on the ground style reporting that's totally gone. Like, right now, all you see is people just regurgitating press releases. But I would just say, really lean into whatever it is you care about. And you have to understand that, like, some people in your life are going to be really supportive. Some people are going to be hesitant, which is so okay. And then you're also going to find out, like, some people maybe, like, weren't meant to be your friends for a long time. I haven't received any hate, like, at all. I've been really lucky, but, you know, some people I notice there is a little bit of distance, like, oh, maybe you invited me to your birthday party last year, but this year you didn't, just because it's awkward. Like, you don't want to have that conversation in person. So I guess you would just say, like, maybe be comfortable having 4 quarters other than 100 pennies. Like, those people who do support you are the people who supported you when things are good and were bad. I also have a lot of people in my life who, like, when I first left the news station, were like, oh my gosh, are you crazy? Like, they tried to stop me. Like, you were throwing away your life. You were throwing away a great job. You worked for this for so many years. Like, you're stupid. Don't do this. Just get the damn shot. It probably doesn't do anything. And a lot of those people are, like, you know, so to speak, crawling back to me now. Like, oh, like, you know, like, you so did the right thing. I can't believe you would have ever worked for them. Because now a lot of this bad stuff about media companies and the vaccine has come out in the last couple of months. But you have to be I mean, I forgive people, but you should be loyal to people who are standing by your side through all of it. So maybe I rambled a little bit, but, like, I guess the takeaway point is, like, just go for it, jump off the deep end, and realize that, like, money is not going to come right away. My production value isn't what I want it to be. I want to get a camera that's like $3,000. That's unrealistic right now. The camera that I had when I worked for my job was pretty expensive, and all the equipment and microphones that come with it. Just start doing it, because people want truth. They don't really care about how fancy it is. One day it will look fancy, but until then, people don't care if I have professional hair, makeup, and cameras. They just want good, raw truth.
Exactly. Yeah. They're done with the cookie cutter kind of the clean cut sort of image. And like you said, really at this stage in the game, we don't really have an excuse. It's within our fingertips, quite literally within our fingertips right now. What used to take, millions of dollars and editing vans and satellite dishes and things like that, we can now do with the technology we have within our means to be able to do the same kind of things that the MSM used to do, 10 years ago that took millions of dollars. So we're in a good position really to take on the MSM right now. So that's why I'm glad we have more voices joining us here in the field of alternative media. So where would you say is the best places for people to go to sign up to you, to follow your reports, and to subscribe? Where's the best places everyone should go online?
Well, I want to say one thing.
Mhm.
I don't think we can pull people away from what you describe as mainstream media. I think those people have to step away themselves. You know what I mean? I can't pull someone away in front of the TV. They have to one day be like, oh, I have a question that wasn't answered, or I'm seeking an alternative, or something doesn't add up here. And then they have to seek us out on their own. So I'm here if people want to come to me, but I mean, the kind of people who every morning wake up and just stare in front of the TV, I can't pull those people away. You can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink it. But the easiest way for people to find me is on my Twitter probably, and my Twitter handle is @AllisonRoyalTV. That's ALLISONROYALTV. And then from there's a link to my Rumble channel. But if you go on Rumble, you can just search Allison Royal New School News. And then on Getter, I'm just Allison Royal. That pretty much sums it all up. But
Okay.
those are the easiest ways for people
Awesome.
to find me.
Well, I'm going to put all the links in the description, and strongly encourage people to not only check you out, but subscribe and start following your work, because we need those other alternative voices that are cutting through the propaganda and kind of countering all the spin that's coming out of the TV that you clearly saw was a problem and had to leave. So once again, I want to encourage everybody to check out the links in the description, and encourage you to keep up the great work. So yeah, thanks once again for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Dan. Hopefully I can come to Canada and meet you someday.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I'm sure I'll see you on the front line sometime. Take care.
Take care.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.